Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. When the Bad Batch was originally brought in to support Commander Cody and Captain Rex's mission on Anaxes, they were specifically chosen because the Separatist Alliance had a new commander who seemed to be very familiar with standard clone tactics and strategies and was handing the clone army one defeat after another. Little did the Grand Army of the Republic know, the enemy had Clone Trooper Echo's brain tied to some supercomputer like he was a game shark with the cheat codes to beat the clone army. Now Cody's belief at the time was that the mutated Clone Force 99 units would be unpredictable enough to deliver them some much-needed battlefield victories, and potentially even help the Republic figure out who is behind this shift in strategy. It's kind of like calling in a drunken master when your opponent is expecting a normal fight. This is why I think Commander Cody's an excellent officer. He's really by the books, he's really disciplined, but when he faces obstacles he can't surmount himself, he's always willing to look for more unorthodox solutions. And that's what Clone Force 99 brings to the table. I mean, remember the first time we see them in the Bad Batch, how they take out that Seppi tank column, how Crosshair used a special attachment on his sniper to tie two AAT tanks together so that Wrecker could push them both off of a cliff? Well, believe it or not, that's not just random chaos. The Bad Batch are actually extremely well prepared for combat and actually practice combat scenarios just like this. They even have a list of plans, or as I like to think of them, as offensive and defensive plays. Today we're going to take a look at all of the Bad Batch's various combat plans.
Havoc 2, the fourth sun is setting. Plan 00. Copy that.
In the second season of the Bad Batch, shortly after the destruction of Kamino, Clone Force 99 is sent on a mission to steal a portion of Count Dooku's massive war chest. Stolen from the people of the Outer Rim, the Galactic Empire was seeking to confiscate the wealth to fund its own military expansion. During the mission, the Bad Batch gets cut off from one another, with Hunter and Rex forming one unit and Echo, Tech, and Omega in another unit, being chased after by the Empire. Tech also was wounded in the process, making his mobility very questionable. With the two groups split off, Hunter makes the call for 00, which signifies it's time to go radio silent, as Imperial forces most likely are going to be monitoring comms, knowing that there are now two separate groups of raiders who are going to try to communicate with one another. For all you Republic Commando fans out there, you guys also might remember the term 000. That is actually the galactic coordinate for Coruscant.
New plan 14, 5, 86. All of them? Yes.
When Vice Admiral Rampart destroyed Kamino, he was acting on behalf of the trigger-happy Wilhuff Tarkin, which is not surprising at all. The attack would be covered up as a weather incident, not all that different from the original natural disaster that forced the Kaminoans to quickly evolve. Everything was going according to plan for the Empire until one Senator Chuchi, a few disgruntled clones, and of course the clone underground got involved. Suddenly, we had a plot to expose this most egregious and violent attack on a member state of the Empire. The Bad Batch decided to help the clones, and they join Rex and infiltrate Admiral Rampart's Venator-class Star Destroyer. They're looking for proof of the attack in the computers in the bridge. I feel like almost half of Star Wars stories now are about infiltrating heavily guarded Imperial military complexes, especially in the Bad Batch. It's like every other story. Now, very quickly, the Bad Batchers and Rex start leaving stunned clones in their wake, and to make matter even worse, in order to access the information they'll need, they have to reroute power to the bridge, which of course would trigger a security breach on board. This sets up your typical defend this location until the data is extracted mission type that I'm sure you've played in a lot of multiplayer shooters, but instead of having a lobby full of randoms, you have the Bad Batch. Hunter belts out a bunch of plans like he's Peyton Manning, audibling pre-snap. For all young folks out there, Peyton Manning was a quarterback from back in the day when you could actually hit wide receivers, and you could kind of hit quarterbacks back then. Anyway, Peyton Manning started like 12 seasons in a row. He never sat out one game until he broke his neck. He was a fucking legend. Anyway, Hunter's mind seems to work just as quickly as Peyton Manning's does, because he quickly comes up with a plan with 3 parts. Now, if I hadn't mentioned before, this Venator-class Star Destroyer that they're breaking into is not in orbit or flying. It is docked on Coruscant. The ship is being refitted or reloaded, and so many of the major systems are off for a good reason. Now, the plans we have here are 5, 14, and 86, and the only plan that we know 100% what it is Plan 5, and that's because they tell us.
Plan 5 set. Activate.
So Plan 5 is basically turning on the thrusters. The Bad Batch infiltrate large ships quite often, and in this case, Plan 5 just causes complete chaos. Because as we mentioned, there are plenty of personnel below the ship still trying to load the thing. And let's not also forget about the docking clamps that are trying to keep this thing down. The ensuing chaos is exactly what you want your enemies to be dealing with when they're also trying to fight you. Completely outnumbered and cornered, Hunter wanted the enemy as disorganized and confused and stretched thin as possible. And that's exactly what this does, especially when the Venator-class Star Destroyer tips over and crashes, causing even more chaos. I'm gonna guess that Plan 14 is when Echo activates the air defenses to shoot down the V-Wings that are patrolling the area, which should be integral to the next part of the operation, Plan 86. All you restaurant workers out there probably know what this means. 86 just means you don't have that, it's no longer available, that item. Which is exactly what the Bad Batch make themselves after successfully carrying out Plan 14 and Plan 5. They are no longer available for capture. So all you football fans out there, let me use your terminology so you better understand what this means. Basically, the Bad Batch were third and short. The defense knew they were gonna run the ball, so Hunter calls an audible at the line. Hunter, recognizing the cover zero, calls for an audible at the line, which turns into a play action pass. Everyone bites on that fake, and boom, the Bad Batch launch clear over the defenses to freedom. Touchdown.
What do we do?
What about Plan 7?
Our next Bad Batch plan almost gets revealed when someone is about to carry out Plan 5 on the Bad Batch while they're still in the engine of a Venator-class Star Destroyer. It's an even hairier situation than the last one. Go one way and you have Crosshair waiting with his sniper rifle, and if you stay in the engine, you get cooked. The situation is so bad that Wrecker is the one who suggests the first plan, Plan 7. We have no idea what Plan 7 is, but judging by how pissed off Echo gets here, it's probably something ridiculous.
What about Plan 7?
Plan 7 has nothing to do with this situation whatsoever.
Knowing Wrecker, I'm pretty sure Plan 7 has something to do with blowing up everything.
Wrecker, remember Plan 55? Oh, yeah.
Isn't it great seeing Crosshair and Wrecker back at it again? A regular Legolas and Gimli pairing, if you ask me. Now, the interesting thing about Plan 55 is it teaches us a very important lesson about all holding cells and prisons in the Star Wars galaxy, and that is, if their walls are magnetically sealed, do not fire your weapon in there. And that's because magnetically sealed walls bounce blaster rounds. And so when you fire a blaster round in there, well, it gets very dangerous for everyone involved. Like that scene with the garbage compactor in the Death Star that Luke and company get trapped in. Now, Wrecker and Crosshair are about to breach a magnetically sealed room, a room that will probably be full of soldiers. But instead of being worried about how dangerous clearing a room with essentially reflective walls will be, they go for Plan 55, which involves Crosshair using the ricochet function on his blaster to string together a series of kills in just one shot. Crosshair's been pulling off trick shots like this since Season 7 of the Clone Wars. This is just the latest rendition of the mirror shot. Plan 55, sans mirror.
Did they teach you Plan 72?
Tick had me memorize all the plans.
Plan 72 is an elaborate one. In this scenario, Crosshair and Omega have reached a downed shuttle on the outskirts of the Mount Tantus facility. They're attempting to reach the Bad Batch somehow with the comms on board, but the power was out in the downed shuttle, and to make matters worse, Hounds and a bunch of TK troopers led by clone commandos were on their way to capture them. Plan 72 involves Crosshair creating a distraction just long enough for Omega to climb on board of the Imperial shuttle that the patrol has arrived on and hijack it. Once inside, Omega has control of the situation and begins blasting away. Perfectly executed Plan 72.
That's not our style. We prefer going to them. Bad Batch, Plan 82, Shockwave.
Plan 82 Shockwave, the plan that started it all and made us realize that these Bad Batchers are not only going to be a lot of fun, they're also going to be extremely deadly. During the Battle of Anaxes, the Bad Batch's transport is shot down, leaving Commander Cody gravely wounded. Captain Rex decides to create a defensive perimeter as Separatist transports begin dropping droids for an assault against their position. At which point, Plan 82 gets carried out. This involves the Bad Batch running directly at their enemy, with Wrecker holding a piece of metal debris for cover. Once they get close enough, Tech calculates the optimal trajectory for a droid popper throw, which Hunter then launches, and Crosshair strikes the droid popper at its optimal height, creating a blanket of energy that stuns the entire battle formation. Airburst a droid popper. Well, that's a pretty smart move.
What did it say?
Plan 88, the Seeker.
You know, the more I look back at Crosshair's actions during the Bad Batch, the more I love the guy. It's one thing to just be born naturally heroic, and parents that, teach you those values and push you towards heroic things, maybe. It's an entirely different thing to be born in a situation where you turn into an authoritarian and then realize you're wrong and somehow claw your way back to some normalcy and decency. When Crosshair finds out that the Empire is searching for the Bad Batch and Omega, he's already given up hope on his own life, but he attempts to escape so that he can warn his former brothers and Omega. He doesn't really make it far during his escape attempt, but he does manage to get out of emergency broadcast to the Bad Batch, Plan 88, the Seeker. It's a pretty simple message. Plan 88 basically means that someone is looking out for the unit, which means you have to be extra vigilant.
There is no time, Wrecker.
Plan 99.
You know, the Bad Batch were named Clone Force 99 after an actual clone named 99. It was defective just like the rest of them, although his case might have been natural and not forced in a lab setting. 99 being disfigured could only work as a janitor on Kamino. But clearly during his time there, he was able to look very closely at all the clones and kind of learn a lot about them and acquire a lot of wisdom. It was thanks to 99's advice that Domino Squad would finally pull together before their final graduation test. Echo was actually a member of that unit, and without 99 talking to Echo's squad mate Heavy, there's no way they would have all become clone troopers. Now later on during the Battle of Kamino, 99 would volunteer to fight even though he wasn't a combatant. He would spend most of the battle carrying weapons and explosives to troops who needed it, and in the final moments of the battle, 99 would get gunned down while firing grenades. And thus the legend of 99 was born. The Bad Batch, everything they stand for comes from this one individual's heroic sacrifice. And of course, Plan 99 involves the sacrifice of one member of the team for the greater good of the unit. It's not a plan that they'd ever used before this incident with Tech on Iradu, but I'm pretty sure every member of the team has thought about it at least once. Now, I know a lot of you guys are traumatized by Tech's decision to sacrifice himself, but this was ultimately the right decision. I mean, he died a hero in order to save the others. If I can offer you any comfort, I can say that Tech died a happy man. I'm almost certain of it. Ultimately, Tech calls for Plan 99. He isn't forced into doing this. He's a deeply analytical and intelligent person. He's probably weighed out all of the scenarios here and he understands that he really just has one last move left. And it's a move that he has to make himself because there's no way Wrecker is going to let him drop. And with all that adrenaline and fear coursing through his bloodstream, Tech would be supremely focused on just one thing. The only thing that he could save, his brothers. And the moment of hesitation we see him take where he hunches his shoulders right before he speaks, that's the only second of regret he gives himself. And his regret isn't about him dying, it's just about him leaving his brothers behind to mourn, to kind of sever that relationship he's worked so hard to develop. I think Tech will be more worried about them than himself, being the pragmatic person he is. He'll be going to his grave full of love for his brothers, and after that it's all over. No pain, no suffering, no more nightmares. Tech was a pragmatic and rational person, perhaps too painfully rational sometimes, which probably means that most of his life was very difficult. He was always the smartest person in the room, interested in things that no one else really understood or cared for. It's not to say that he wanted to die, but there were very few things other than his brothers which made him happy. And so Tech gave this sacrifice very willingly. Rest in peace, Tech. And so there you have it, guys. Those are all of the various plans used by the Bad Batch. Let me know in the comment section below which ones you think are the most interesting. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.